Okay, so the most recent episode of The Walking Dead that I've watched was pretty interesting. I know I'm a little bit behind on my episodes, but this episode was interesting. I'm starting to get back into the flow of the show. So part of what we see involves Danielle now reunited with Strand. They end up being on this wild goose chase to go back to the hotel. It ends up being a complete waste of Daniel and Strand's time, because Strand knows that basically everybody is gone from the hotel, but he is playing it off and for the purposes of safe passage, I guess. But like, he did this to get out of that situation, but it's just like, well, you're really just wasting your own time, because you know nobody's at the hotel. I mean, he assumed the people who were there when he left were still there, but I don't know what the real point of him going back would have been, because it quickly turns sideways and his lie quickly blows up in his face as soon as they get there. So it doesn't really serve him any purpose of doing this. So that story kind of ended up hitting a dead end, where he gets abandoned and he has to fend for himself, because Daniel's left him with the car, with his newly gifted car, I believe is the one. It's not shiny and pretty and black anymore. It's just like covered with zombie guts. But yeah, Daniel's left him with the car. So he has to fend for himself, and he's just on the run on foot. On the other side of the story, we have Madison, Alicia, and Nick dealing with the stuff they're dealing with, living on the ranch or whatever. It seems like I can never remember Nick's girlfriend's name, but she wanted to leave, and it seems like towards the end of the episode, maybe she's turning around on that. He's trying to show her that this can be a stable place for them, which we know is not really the truth, because there never is any stability in the Walking Dead universe as a whole. So this is gonna blow up in their faces at some point, but it just hasn't yet. The intro was the intro was very interesting, because we see this scene of these this old man in bed and his wife. She's standing up in the corner, and we find out that she's turned, and he brings her to him and hugs her, and we see her like gnawing on his neck. It's like, oh, she doesn't have any teeth. So that was brilliant, because we hadn't seen that before, like a zombified old person, like, who legitimately didn't have any teeth. Their teeth were in a cup by the nightstand, and he knew that, so he just let her chew on him, let her gum him down for one last time. He pulls out a gun, puts it to his own head, and kills the both of them. So it was poetic and beautiful in a dark, twisted way. But there was another interesting intro to the episode. They've been doing this for a couple episodes now, where their intro is almost a non sequitur, but it is connected to the actual show, because it turns out those were people who lived on the property of the ranch. This large, expansive property. So we find out more when the leader of the ranch, whatever his name is talking to Nick. He's like, well, this was the only house on this land originally. And then a little bit about the land. They go into talking about, like, okay, originally this was the only house on the property, even back when it was the Red Man's land. And in this episode, we actually see the Red Man. Not rapper Reggie Noble, but we actually see an indigenous person. So it seems to be there's a conflict brewing between the indigenous peoples and the white people who live on this property. So I'm I'm excited for that because that's definitely something we haven't seen in The Walking Dead. We've seen so many conflicts between so many different factions of humans fighting each other amongst the zombie nuisance that this is a new and different one. So I appreciate that. I hope that there's more intensity like we saw in this episode, because we actually saw a bunch of people burnt up. I guess they were their people, the people of the ranch, these other soldiers or whatever. And we actually see this one guy who's sitting there who at first glance he looks fine, but we see like he's just rambling something. He's saying some kind of poem, but you'll notice that there is a crow. I'm thinking of like American Gods, because like I saw the birds on there. I was like, oh, crows. But then they would say, oh, those are my ravens. I was like, okay. So I clearly don't know the difference between a crow and a raven. So if anybody knows, it would be helpful if you gave me that explanation in the comments. Because I don't think I know the difference properly. So, yeah, so there's crow or raven or whatever picking at his actual scalp, picking at his brain. So he has clearly been scalped, which is kind of stereotypical, but this is a savage world that we're living in, so everybody's basically a wild savage at this point, so you can't begrudge the indigenous people for going back to practices that have proved successful in the past. So it would have been like, it was interesting scene, and it was very poetic, this guy sitting there reading this poem. It would have been even more poetic if he was reciting the raven as he actually has this bird that looks like a raven on his shoulder. But yeah, so that was creepy and something we hadn't seen on The Walking Dead, just like a sadistic semi-killing, like somebody being mutilated in that way, because we've seen like the different types of gore as far as what you can do with zombies, but this is what somebody did with an actual living person, so that was even creepier. So I'm excited for the conflict that's happening between them, and otherwise there's little things going on within the group, the farmer family and Madison, Nick, and Alicia, that little family, that it's going to blow up at some point, probably soon. So that's going to be interesting to see. I still don't feel like I'm rooting for anybody on the show, because I'm not really rooting for Strand. Daniel has proven that he's a badass, and that's going to be interesting to watch, but I don't know if I'm rooting for him. So I don't know. And in this episode, Alicia has sex, because we totally needed to see that. Like, I don't think it was necessary, and just like the way it happened, like, call me a prude because I've been married for over 12 years, but like, are people in real life just really just boning down with each other just that quickly? Like, you know what, let's do this. Like, we never indicated any interest in each other before this very second, but you know what, I'm gonna kiss you, and we're immediately gonna have sex. Like, do people just do that? Their first kiss immediately transitions into their first time having sex. It's just like, wow, all right, that escalated quickly. But you know, that's what's happening on TV, at least. So yeah, so this episode was interesting. I'm gonna probably try to get into the next one before a week passes, since I'm one episode behind, but we'll see. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments, and hit the thumbs up if you liked my review, and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Help me meet my goal of 150 subscribers. It's a small hill, but I'm walking up it slowly but surely. Help me get there. Who wants to walk with Zach? All right. Thanks for watching, and that's all you get for today.